Alright, so today's video is going to be breaking down Wolhaiksong and Baek Ryun, who of course is the founder, the leader of Wolhaiksong, along with Urek Mazino. We're gonna do both today because I thought these two were just so closely related that it wouldn't really make sense to break them up. And also, I just really wanted to talk about Baek Ryun. If you don't know who he is or his backstory, one of the most fascinating characters in Tower of God, and he hasn't even shown up yet. I feel like all the interesting characters just haven't shown up yet. The 10 family heads, the 3 lords, you know, and all these people, they're just so mysterious. Frickin' Luzlek? Frickin' Luzlek? Dude, where are these? We need these characters ASAP, SIU, come on. But at the same time, of course, that is what makes them awesome, so I don't mind. Wolhaiksong is an organization that, contrary to popular belief, is actually not super duper anti-jihad. Now, they kind of are, I'll get into that in a second, but Wolhaiksong's main goal is to get out of the tower, which is very interesting because there are not that many people who sort of think this way. You know, like there's people who talk about it, but ultimately most people in the tower sort of just assume they're going to live in the tower for the rest of their lives. This is their life, you know, that they're content with this system to some extent. Obviously Fug isn't content, but they're content with at least living in the tower. Wolhaiksong is the opposite of that. Their goal is to leave the tower. They hear all these interesting stories from Urek, right, who's actually from outside the tower, and they're sick of it. They want to leave. They want to see what the outside world is all about because apparently it's way larger than the tower. So that is their goal, but they are technically like against the family heads to some extent and jihad to some extent, but not nearly as much as Fug. People paint them as like, oh, Wolhaiksong and Fug, you know, the anti-jihad people, when it's really not that simple, you know. I feel like it's more that the 10 family heads are sort of the figureheads, right, of this institution, and because Wolhaiksong is against that, then they are technically against the family heads, but they're not like actively trying to take them down. They're really just kind of a bunch of good people trying to leave the tower. Like, that's it. In fact, they are described as more of a social club as opposed to like this religious organization. Fug is literally like this religious group, these zealots who exist all over the tower who are like, we must kill jihad and the family head. Like Wolhaiksong, they're just a bunch of dudes who are like, hey, let's get out of the tower, you know? But that being said, they are no slouches. In fact, according to people like Kunhind Luck, he said this once, Wolhaiksong is potentially strong enough and influential enough to combat jihad's army. Now, they probably wouldn't win because jihad's army has the numbers and a ton of influence, but they can at least put up a fight and rival something like jihad's army, which is insane. But if you think about it, with Urek Mazino as your co-leader, your sub-leader, I mean, are we really surprised? Not to mention Baek Ryun, their leader, is number 9 in the rankings. Like, he's no slouch. But with that being said, the 10 family heads haven't shown that much concern. Like Gustang implied that it's really just the 10 family heads see this group as kind of like just a bunch of kids, you know, kind of doing their thing. But at the same time, like, they are making progress towards their goal. I mean, here's the thing. No one has found a way to leave the tower, supposedly. Even Gustang himself has tried to find a way, but no one has found a tried and true way. But the interesting thing is, Arlen has left. So it's interesting because it's possible that Wolhaiksong knows about that and is trying to find out more about how she left and all that stuff, and maybe that's how Bomb is going to be connected to Wolhaiksong. But at the time being, they're trying to leave. They're making progress. So when I say making progress, right, they're not exactly like, oh, we're almost out, but they are influential in other ways. They're kind of just a bunch of good guys, you know. Obviously, in season 1, they helped with the whole second floor test thing. You know, like, the people who were with Yuri, that's not Yuri's team. That's Wolhaiksong, you know? Urek and Baek Ryun are the leaders, but people like Kurdan and Miss Ice Strawberry and Blueberry, you know, a bunch of fruit names, they're Wolhaiksong, you know, and they're just some of the members, obviously influential members, but that just shows you, like, they're there to help. You know, Yuri was like, hey, can you come help me with this, you know, and they were on board. And obviously they had other reasons for being there aside from just helping Yuri, but Wolhaiksong, they're out there doing some stuff. Talking about their members, other than Baek Ryun and Urek Mazino, you've got Hotsling or Hatchling or Blueberry, right? Kurdan, Magex, who was a guy who showed up after the workshop battle, friggin' robot head, I don't know. Miss Ice Strawberry, who is actually connected to the Eurasia family, like Lauro. Miss Ice Strawberry's partner, who has the best name ever. UJ, who is Urek's butler guy. He's kind of always there helping Urek, you know. I want to see more of that guy because he's cool. And then Woon Yan, who is the ditzy ranker who revived Kun but gave him his firepower, and he's kind of not the most reliable dude ever. And then, of course, the one and only heroic center of Wolhaiksong, the one holding everything together, Tulalan. Pentaminum reincarnated. Tulalan is the man. Even though those are the only known members, at least that we know of currently, Yuri has been known to obviously be with them and help them, and in turn they've helped her, like I just mentioned in season 1. And then Leiroro and Quant are like interns currently for Wolhaiksong, but it has been a few years, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did join. That would be freaking badass and awesome. Just imagine like Leiroro rolling up with Urek and UJ and Quant. Dude. Oh my, I would lose my mind. I forgot to mention this, but they reside on the 77th floor. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, how did they get their name? What's going, like Wolhaiksong roughly translates to like the winged tree under the moon, or like wing tree, you know, tree, wing, okay, wing tree. That's Wolhaiksong essentially. How did they get their name? Well, we're gonna find out by talking about Baek Ryun. Now I know what you're thinking, Baek Ryun? Like Hwaryun? Oh, what's going on? There's probably no relation. There's probably no relation. It is the same like Korean character, letter, right? But it's probably just a coincidence. Hwaryun's a red witch, and Baek Ryun is someone entirely different. I gotta say, I did not realize how fascinating this guy was, but oh man, Baek Ryun he's a character. He's crazy. So currently Baek Ryun is ranked number 9 in the tower, which means he's ranked higher than some of the family heads, like Gustang, you know? Like that's kind of a big deal right off the bat, all things considered. He's a wave controller, so he's a gifted wave controller. Obviously, one of the founding members of Wolhaiksong. And what I love about Baek Ryun is that, you know how like all the rankers in the tower, they get nicknames or like sobriquets, sobriquets? I'm never gonna know how to say that. When they were gonna give one to Baek Ryun, they were like, what do you want to be called? Or they were gonna give him a nickname. He freaking declined. He was like, I don't want a nickname. He literally just refused it. There's like almost no high-ranking ranker that doesn't have one. And he was just like, I don't care. He was like, I just don't care. I just, no. And this really fits into his character because Baek Ryun is not really someone special. But that's exactly what makes him special, because for someone who apparently wasn't born to one of the 10 family heads or isn't an irregular, this guy is gifted. He was born in the middle area somewhere. He was an orphan, and he pretty much one day was like, you know what? I'm gonna go live in a forest. He was like, I'm gonna go live in the forest. So, okay, they let him go live in the forest. No one probably cared, right? And while in the forest, he freaking learned how to use Shinsu. This is a big deal because he didn't make a contract, as far as we know, with the administrator. This might actually mean that he is descended from one of the 10 family heads, but as far as we know, he's not, and he just freaking learned on his own. That is like almost unheard of. So of course, Hedon, who's just constantly on his little like computer looking at all his webcams, seeing where all the potential regulars are, right? He was like, okay, this guy is interesting, and he picked him to be a regular because of course. And then in like such a small amount of time, he became a ranker because he's freaking Baek Ryun. And then once he became a ranker, he went back to his forest and just kept living there. He was like, okay, now that that's done, I'm going back. And he just freaking lived there forever. And his forest, you know, it wasn't exactly like a normal forest because of course, right? Maybe because of Baek Ryun, or maybe Baek Ryun was drawn to it, but apparently people say the forest was like its own like living creature potentially. There was this mysterious aura around this forest. So it sort of became a little bit famous. And Urek Mazino at the time was climbing the ranks as a regular, and he heard of the forest and wanted to go visit it, and thus began a friendship that spanned generations. He visited Baek Ryun, they became pals and buddies, and Baek Ryun, who up until this point, as far as we know from the lore, hadn't been interested in much, right? He became a regular and then just went back to his forest once he became a ranker. He was actually interested in something that Urek had to say, and that is Urek's stories about the outside of the tower, the outside world. This was, as far as we know, the first time that Baek Ryun showed an interest in something other than his forest. And eventually he started dreaming of leaving the tower and finding out what was out there. So Urek left, became a ranker, he came back, you know, and he admitted that he wanted to leave and he wanted to do what Urek wanted to do. Urek wanted to leave the tower, right? And Baek Ryun was like, hey, I want to as well. Like, I admit I'm down, but even though Urek offered, you know, Baek said he would, he said he wanted to, and then Urek was like, then come with me. And Baek said, well, okay, but I like my forest, you know, and the forest is like my thing, it's my life. So Urek, being the ultimate Chad that he is, was like, you want your forest? Okay, I'll give you your forest. He freaking took the forest, okay, and do not ask me how, but he shouted, apparently, he freaking like pounded his chest even, because he's Urek, he can do anything he wants, and he took the forest and compressed it into a box, like this big, and then he was like, hey, here you go. He freaking gave the forest to Baek Ryun, and Baek Ryun was like, okay, this is kind of awesome, but the forest was like too heavy, so Urek had to carry it for him, and it was like this whole thing where it was like, and that's how the friendship between them is symbolized, and that became the symbol for Wolhaiksong. Bro, what a crazy story. You know, it's like Baum and Kuhn, you know, I guess their meeting was fine, you know, running away from Rak and like all this stuff. Urek gave him a forest as a present and established their friendship. And because Urek Mazino defeated Han on the 100th floor with Han's famous test that you can take if you want to, only 2 people have ever defeated him at that test, and Urek is one of them. After he did that, Han gave him the 77th floor as a gift, because that's kind of his thing. He gives you something crazy. You know, Urek requested it. And that became the headquarters of Wolhaiksong. They moved the forest there. Now here's the thing, the 77th floor does have a massive forest. We don't know if that's the same forest, you know, maybe Baek Ryun or Urek uncompressed it and, you know, it became their new home there. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, otherwise, what are the odds that there's this massive forest? But we don't know that for sure. You know, maybe they took a seed or something, and maybe the box, the forest in a box with wings. I forgot to mention that. The box had wings. Frickin', I messed it all up. Okay, yeah, I forgot to mention this. The winged tree, right? Urek didn't just say, I'll box it up for you. He said, I'll box it up, I'll give this forest a pair of wings. He said, I'll make it fly. That way it can go with you. So that was the thing. He compressed it, and then it had a couple wings. Who knows? Maybe Urek's a talented artist. I don't know. I butchered that earlier, but that is why. Okay, so then it's the 77th floor, the forest, you know, who knows. Now what's interesting too is Baek Ryun, like as far as like his personality goes or his appearance, like no one really can agree on the same thing. Because he really is kind of a recluse as far as we know, but some people say he looks like a young boy, a young man. Some people say he looks a little older than that, and some people say he's like as tall as the ceilings of the tower. So like, and the thing too is that Baek Ryun didn't do much combat as a ranker, so even though he's ranked number 9, it's more for influence as the leader of Wolhaiksong. That being said, he probably is freaking strong, we just don't really know, and the ranking bureau doesn't really know because they haven't really seen him in combat. And yeah, that actually is pretty much it. I'm sure I missed a few details about Wolhaiksong and Baek Ryun, but the video is already getting a little bit longer than they usually are, and that's the main stuff. That is the stuff you need to know about Baek Ryun and Wolhaiksong. I figured it makes sense to put them in the same video. But this guy is crazy. He's the leader of Wolhaiksong. Like, I want to meet him. I bet you he's so interesting, you know, and him and Urek going on adventures or whatever. I'd love to see that. But overall, that is that. So thanks for watching. If I missed something, let me know in the comments. What was the most interesting thing you learned from this video? I'm sure you hardcore Tower of God fans already knew this, but yeah, other thing too, I'm gonna be releasing a slew of these Tower of God lore videos because Tower of God is probably returning somewhat soon, and I wanna just get these out. You know, I wanna pump these out. That way, we can be prepared for when Tower of God hopefully returns. But overall, thanks again for watching. Patrons, you guys are the best. I love you, and I guess I love you too, I don't know. But thanks a lot for everything, patrons. You guys rock. And actually, this video, in fact, was suggested by one of my patrons in our little Discord chat, Adam, thank you for this video suggestion, because I was like, how have I not talked about, like, I've talked about Fug, I've talked about, you know, Luzlek, how have I not talked about Wolhaiksong? Great video suggestion, I really appreciate that. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in my next Tower of God lore video. Take care.